There are goodbyes in life that happen with words. And then there are goodbyes that happen silently, deep within the soul. You were guided here because you are living through one of those silent endings now. Not necessarily the ending of a relationship, a place, or a circumstance, but the ending of an identity. The ending of a version of yourself that carried you through pain, survival, disappointment, and uncertainty. And perhaps you do not fully realize it yet, but part of the sadness you have been feeling lately is grief. Not grief for someone else. Grief for the person you used to be. This kind of grief is difficult to explain. Because how do you mourn someone who is still you? How do you release a version of yourself that protected you for years? How do you say goodbye to identities built around survival when survival once felt necessary? For a long time, you became who you needed to become. You became stronger because life demanded strength. You became quieter because speaking felt unsafe. You became smaller because taking up space felt dangerous. You became the helper, the peacemaker, the one who endured, the one who carried more than anyone realized. And none of this happened because you were weak. It happened because you adapted. Because adaptation kept you moving. Adaptation kept you alive. But there comes a moment when the soul whispers something deeply unsettling: you no longer need to survive in the same way. And suddenly, everything changes. Because the version of you built around protection begins realizing it no longer belongs in the life trying to emerge. And strangely, even beautiful change can hurt. Because growth is not only about gaining. Growth is also about losing. Losing identities. Losing emotional armor. Losing familiar ways of relating to yourself and the world. You may have noticed recently that old reactions no longer feel natural. Old dreams feel distant. Old distractions no longer satisfy you. And part of you keeps wondering, why do I feel so different? Because your soul is gently loosening your grip on who you used to be. Not because your old self failed. Because your old self completed its purpose. That version of you carried impossible weight. That version endured loneliness. That version survived heartbreak, uncertainty, fear, and silent battles no one fully understood. Honor them. Do not reject them. Do not judge them. They brought you here. But understand something important: survival versions of ourselves often do not know how to receive peace. They know vigilance. They know sacrifice. They know emotional armor. But peace feels unfamiliar to them. Love feels unfamiliar. Rest feels unfamiliar. Joy feels unfamiliar. Because they learn to expect pain. And now your soul is asking you to learn another way of living. Not through survival. Through truth. You are becoming someone who no longer wants to carry emotional heaviness simply because it feels familiar. Someone who no longer wants relationships built on self-abandonment. Someone who no longer wants a life organized around fear. And while this awakening is sacred, it can also feel lonely because not everyone understands identity grief. People celebrate beginnings. Few people talk about the sadness hidden inside transformation. But sadness exists there. Because becoming requires release. And release asks for courage. You may still want to return sometimes. Return to old patterns. Old identities. Old ways of seeing yourself. Not because they were peaceful but because they were known. But every time you try returning completely, your spirit feels heavier. Because souls are not meant to shrink back into identities they have already outgrown. You are not becoming cold. You are not becoming distant. You are not becoming lost. You are becoming real. And reality often feels unfamiliar before it feels freeing. There are parts of you awakening now that your old self never had the chance to meet. Parts that know peace. Parts that trust. Parts that rest. Parts that no longer measure worth through suffering. They are arriving quietly. Slowly. tenderly. And they need space. I am with you through this goodbye. In every moment when grief makes you miss who you used to be, I am there. In every moment when fear tells you to retreat into identities your spirit has already outgrown, I am there, reminding you that endings within the soul are not punishments. They are rebirth. So stop fearing the distance growing between you and your old self. Stop believing you must carry every version of yourself forever. Some identities were chapters, not destinations. And one day, you will look back at this season with tears of gratitude and understand, the hardest goodbye was never to another person. It was to the version of yourself who survived everything. So the real you could finally begin to live.